Welcome to the Private Practice Journeys podcast, where mental health professionals learn about the nuts and bolts of private practice by listening to the journeys of 4 therapists that have taken the plunge into private practice. And here's your host, Chris Quarto.
Hi, everyone. This is Chris Quarto, and welcome again to Private Practice Journeys. I hope that you're getting off to a great start in 2017. Many of you may be starting a private practice or considering it. And if you are, listening to these podcast episodes is a great way to figure out how to do this and learning from the experiences of people who are actually going through this process. And that's what this is all about. It's not an easy thing to do, and there's a lot to learn. And that's what I'm here to do, is to bring these experiences to you so you can apply these to your own journeys into private practice. And today we're going to have Amanda Petrik come on and talk about her experiences, what's been going on for the past month since she started her practice. So without further ado, let's see what Amanda has to say. Hello, Journey followers. Welcome again to Private Practice Journeys, where I interview 4 therapists who are taking the plunge into private practice once a month throughout 2017. Well, today I'm joined by Amanda Petrik. And how are you doing today, Amanda?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. Can you believe it's already February 2017?
I know.
It's just going by
my
quickly.
First month.
I want to talk a little bit about that. And one of the things we're going to do is we're going to talk about how things have been going for you specifically. And I just want to remind the Journey followers a little bit about you, Amanda, because you've taken the plunge into private practice a little bit more recently. You were in a hospital setting, as I recall, and you were working basically an 8 to 5 type job there, and you were doing a little bit of part-time private practice. And then I think, as you said on your last podcast episode, you just decided, I'm going to do this full time. Is that right?
Yes, I just gave my notice all of a sudden. So I'm like, I have this part-time practice. It's going fairly well.
Uh-huh.
And I just gave my notice. And yep, come January 2017, I have been full-time now.
Oh, so how are things been going so far, just kind of generally speaking?
Yeah, I think that they have actually been going really well. Most of my goals I had set for the year to come, I've already achieved them. So.
Oh, wow. I bet a lot of the Journey followers would like to be in your place right now.
Yeah.
And
so hopefully I'm not jinxing myself here.
Oh, and for some of the Journey followers, they might not know yet that we have a Facebook group, a Private Practice Journeys community, where they can follow along with you and just kind of with one another to support one another in their own efforts to prepare for and jump into private practice themselves. And you had put some stuff on there about private practice, and it's so cool to read that about all these things that are happening for you. Well, let me just start. My motto for my own private practice is growing by learning. And what I'd like to do today, Amanda, is to spend a little bit of time talking about things that you've learned over the past month. And so I've kind of got this, a series of things that I'd like to ask you about. And one of the first things is what I call learning by doing. And so what I'd like to do is just have you talk about maybe some task, some activity pertaining to your business that you've tackled over the past month that maybe you feel a little bit more confident about as a business owner. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that first.
Yeah, I would say the big task that I learned to do myself, and it's been very nerve-wracking, confidence boosting, but I have decided to do my own billing.
Ooh.
Yes, I looked at my financials, and now that I'm seeing so many more clients per month and I had been paying my billing services per claim,
right,
I was like, holy cow, I'm paying like about a mortgage payment's worth
to
my billing services.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm smart enough. I could figure out how to do this myself.
Uh-huh.
And it was very nerve-wracking because if I don't do it right, I don't get paid.
That's true. That's very true. Well, tell us a little bit about that, about how what you're using to do that, and sort of what that learning curve was like.
Yeah, so I did a lot of research into the different electronic health records out there.
Yeah.
And I went with Simple Practice
All right.
because I also loved their note-taking, their scheduling, and everything. And so I went with that. And their electronic billing was so easy. And so far, I've gotten paid for every claim.
Oh, wow.
And the one question, because of course I run everything by my family and my fiance, and they're like, but is it worth, the amount I paid for my billing service?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, it's literally a click of a button.
Mm.
I felt like I was spending more time, making copies, sending it to my billing service, faxing things over, clarifying. And this, I don't have to do any of that anymore.
That's
I just click submit and it's done.
That's a really good point. I mean, as a private practitioner, I think you have to take a look at, how am I spending my time, because time is money, isn't it? And, it sounds like you did that, looking at, I was spending so much time the other way. And now, as I'm transitioning into this new role as a private practitioner, it really wasn't worth my while. And quite honestly, you could probably be using that time doing more productive things, like seeing clients, right?
Exactly. And that's what I think most people that are using a billing service, that's great if it works for them.
Yeah.
But I was spending more time sending stuff over to them, sending my billing sheets, faxing over insurance cards.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it actually saves me more time and, of course, money. So that is what I tackled. And that, oh my gosh, that was so scary.
Yeah. Well, I think if I were a Journey follower listening to you talk about this right now, Amanda, the thing that I would be thinking is, okay, I've heard of Simple Practice. I've heard of these other electronic health record systems. How hard is it to learn these things? So what was the learning curve like for you?
It was so easy. They not only have so many tutorials and videos, you can subscribe to for free, like their classes, so they can run you through how to do everything from how to schedule a client, how to write their notes, how to do their electronic billing. They even have a billing kind of guru that you can ask all their questions to.
Right.
Which I have been.
Okay.
So, and I can only speak, this is the only electronic health record I actually subscribed to and tried, but it was so simple to use.
Right. Well, I don't know if you feel comfortable sharing this information, and it's fine if you don't, but another question I think that people would have, just kind of looking at all the nuts and bolts of all this stuff, is, well, okay, so how much do I have to shell out? I mean, because in your case, you were probably paying the other service or person who is doing that for you a certain amount, but for Simple Practice, is this like a monthly subscription? How does this work?
Yeah, so you subscribe per month for the program, and I'm doing kind of the middle program, so you can do electronic billing. It's $49 a month.
Okay.
So there's a smaller program, like $39 a month, but you can't do your billing.
Okay.
So $49 a month, I could do my billing, and it's only 25 cents a claim.
Oh, okay.
So I was paying over $6 a claim.
Wow.
So big savings. So at the end of the day, like with my monthly fee and with this 25 cents a claim, I might spend $75 for the whole month for my EHR and for all my billing.
Isn't that
amazing? I know I was going to be spending about $650 a month.
Oh my gosh.
All my billing.
Yeah.
I know. I'm like, that's my house.
Yeah. So really, it's, once you learn the system, it basically, it pays for itself over and over again, doesn't it?
It does. So that was a really exciting thing that I decided to take on this month, and so far it's panned out.
And of course, Simple Practice is more than just a billing program, right? It's I heard you say that you do scheduling. Is there anything else that you do with that?
Yes, it does the email reminders to clients, which I love because I no longer have to remind them. It has like a client portal so clients can log on online and they can check their appointments, check their billing. They can schedule themselves if they want.
Yeah.
You can send them paperwork. It has everything.
Oh, wow.
Sorry, I'm not trying to like promote Simple Practice.
I was just going to say, I bet the Simple Practice people would love to hear this free promo right now.
I know. They're not paying me to say this, but I did a lot of research into all of them.
Yeah.
And they finally won out.
Well, that's good to know because, I've seen things for Simple Practice. I've seen things for other electronic health record systems too, but I'm glad to hear that this one is working out for you. Well, let me go on to another point here, Amanda. Something that I call learning from experience, which some of us know as hindsight is 2020, or if there's is there anything that's happened in this past month? You're just kind of starting up now in full-time private practice. Something that where you said to yourself, "Geez, why did I do that?" Or why didn't I do that? Or something that just didn't go the way that you wanted it to. What was that? If you had the chance to do something over again, what would that be?
Yes. And luckily I've already started changing this up, and it's my approach on how I do my scheduling.
All right.
I went to some colleagues and I'm like, how do I get people scheduled during the daytime? Because my 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are all booked, but I'm sitting around in the mornings with nothing to do.
Right.
Because everyone wants to work around their school and their work schedule.
Sure.
And I realized when I was scheduling referrals, I was saying, what days and times work best for you? Mm-hmm. Well, of course, when I say that, what are they going to say?
Yeah, whatever is best for them.
After work.
That's right.
And what I was suggested was to ask people or to tell them, here is what I have available.
Exactly.
And because I was trying to work around everybody else's schedules, instead they need to work around mine. Because if they really want to see me, they'll see me. They'll make it work.
That's exactly right. They'll make the time. That's something that I do myself in my private practice. I mean, my private practice is part-time, so I don't have the extensive hours that you do. But I do a lot of psych evals, and every time a client calls, I say, I do all of my psych evals at 8 o'clock in the morning. They last for about 2 hours, and it's never a problem. Very rarely is it a problem. And I offer Saturday morning appointments too, if they can't make it in during the week for some reason. But it's just so amazing that people can really do it if they want to do it. Right.
And I was told that there may be a person here and there that says, well, I have to have evening.
Yeah.
And they'll move on. And I had one of those, and it was so hard to hear him move on.
Yes.
But then the next day, I got 3 or 4 more people that said, yes, we'll do the daytime.
Yeah, you know what? And I bet that, when you're first starting off in private practice, it's so hard to say no to those people, isn't it?
Yes.
Because you're thinking, there goes an opportunity for me, not only financially, but this is a way for me to learn, to get experience, to become a better counselor, better clinician. So there are all those emotions that kind of run through you.
Yes, because I hate to say it, but right now you're seeing clients kind of as dollar signs as your financial.
Oh, sure.
You want to stay in business, and so telling somebody no and giving them a name and number of another therapist, that was excruciating.
Oh,
but then the next day, more referrals came in. And it's fine.
And I think that that's the thing that a lot of people figure out when they're first going into private practice is when you start having those experiences where, well, even though I wasn't able to get this person, if I wait long enough, somebody else will come along. Now, at first, that might seem like a century that you have to wait before that next person comes along. But for you, it doesn't sound like that's been that big of an issue.
No, I've been pretty lucky with the referrals coming in. So
well, and I wonder if part of that is because of the way that you've been marketing. And so just kind of segueing into just kind of the learning to market type of approach. What are some marketing strategies that you've used over the past month? What have you been using that you found to be successful?
Yeah, so I'm a dork. I love marketing, which I know, like most therapists, it scares them because they think of it as like this, they have to sell themselves. But to me, I'm thinking it's building connections. I love networking with people. So I did, right before I started in January, I sent out dozens of letters to every doctor or provider I could think of
Okay.
that they see the same types of clients that I do, whether it was an OBGYN, a pediatrician. And then this last week, I even sent to urgent care. And literally the day the urgent care doctor got my letter, she called me.
Is that
like,
right?
Ah. Yeah, she was like, I'm so glad this showed up on my desk because I have somebody for you. And so I sent a lot of letters. I saw a lot of suggestions that you need to actually go meet the doctors in person. Well, I've worked in a hospital. I don't know how you meet doctors in person because they're never available.
Yeah.
So I tried this and it worked. And then I'm just constantly emailing people I don't know, whether it's a therapist in private practice that I know their name but I haven't met, and just introducing myself. And so,
I wonder.
Other than the normal.
I wonder about that because you hear about these people who are in sales and they do the cold calls and all that kind of stuff, and you kind of did that, didn't you? I mean, you sent out a lot of letters to people that you didn't know. I mean, and you didn't know what kind of response that you were going to get. What made you decide to do just the letters? I mean, that's kind of an old-fashioned type of an approach, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people kind of look down upon that, thinking nobody's going to respond. They just throw those out. And I'll admit, I've gotten that kind of stuff on my doorstep, and I threw it away, thinking, well, if you're just going to drop off a business card.
Yeah.
But I think the difference was I didn't just drop off a business card, which I've seen people do.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote a letter in my own personality. It wasn't just this form letter saying, hey, my name's Petrik. I want to introduce myself.
Send me some clients
this month. Yes. And I just said, let me know how I can help out your clients with their mental health needs. Here's what I specialize in. And I sent it to those providers that see these same type of clients, but this isn't what they do. Like urgent care. They get those people coming in with panic attacks, and they're like, we don't do panic attacks. And the thing is, I knew that I only needed a couple people to respond. I only need a couple good referral sources. And heck, if I sent it to 60-some doctors, a couple will respond, and they did. Right,
exactly. And then you think, if those doctors start sending you clients, it's just a matter of time before, if they feel like you're doing good work, it's just going to be a steady stream of referrals. And that's kind of what starts it all up, doesn't it? And what I really liked what you said, Amanda, is when in your letter, the way that you went about doing that is essentially you kind of phrased it in a way of, how can I be of service to you and your clients? And I think that goes a long way. And I think the thing that would present a problem is kind of what I was jokingly saying just a few minutes ago, that if you say, this is who I am, please send me clients, that's just going to be a total turnoff to them. But you kind of phrased it in the, how can I be of service? How did you know to do that?
Oh, I had no idea. I didn't do any research before I sent these letters, but I guess I was thinking about what I would like if somebody sent me something. I think when I mentioned I've been turned off when people just literally put, a rat card on my doorstep or with a pen. That's basically what they're doing, is just send me your people.
Yes.
They didn't tell me who they were and how they could help me and what they specialize in. And that's what I tried to do a little bit differently.
Now, as you've, so it sounds like this is working out pretty well for you. Are you going to continue kind of along this line, or are you going to kind of do different types of marketing things? What are you going to do that way in the upcoming months, Amanda?
Yep. Every week I try to do something. And so either I send a couple more letters or contact a few more therapists. I've done the Facebook ad, which I like that because even old clients have found me now through the Facebook ads. And I even thought about not just social media, but other media. We have a local magazine or even just our newspaper, seeing if, can I write a column for you? Can we have a mental health column? So those are just kind of future ideas I've thought about if I need more. Yeah.
So so that makes sense. I think you're just kind of looking at, how can I expand my marketing approach, and, looking at, who's my potential client audience, and, where could I where could I best reach them? What's the best mechanisms of reaching them, whether it's social media or magazine or, whatever the case is. And I think all of that are things that people who are going into private practice need to think about. I mean, there is a lot to be said about marketing, and it's not something, that you learn about in graduate school. And
Not at all.
yeah, so did you learn how to do this somewhere? I mean, or is this something you just kind of figured, okay, I'll just try this, I'll try that, and just kind of did it on your own?
I'm just winging it. I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm thinking about, well, how would I if I had these concerns, if I had depression or anxiety, where would I see an ad, or who would I go to first? And that's where I'm trying. Like for kids, I contacted every school counselor, school social worker, psychologist, and let them know who I am, because that's where kiddos are going to go.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So yeah, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just trying it and see if it'll work.
Well, it sounds like what you're doing is you're using common sense. I mean, it's
yes.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that goes into this as well. Well, let me ask you a little bit about just kind of learning about finances, because this is something you talked a little bit about when you had talked about billing and that kind of thing. But I think that one of the things about private practice is that people who do this have never been in a situation where they've really had to closely monitor what's coming in, what's going out. I mean, it's really, you're the business owner now. And so it's really up to you to keep close track of this. So what are the types of things that you've learned about in terms of finances this past month, Amanda?
I would say some more tips. I've never had too much of a struggle as far as, gathering money from clients or keeping track or sending out invoices.
Yeah.
But I have learned some big tips to make sure I collect money.
Oh, all right.
So some tips for anybody starting out is it is so much easier to collect in person, like in that session, than trying to bill for it later or track people down. But I know how difficult that can be for a lot of clinicians in our profession to ask for money.
What do you think makes that so difficult, by the way?
Oh, I think just because we're in that helping field and finances are it's one of those topics you just don't talk about. And even today I had a session where, we're financially struggling. I can't pay that $30. And I'm like, well, that's in my office policies. That's due every time session.
Right.
Do you need to go run to an ATM to get that? And I think that would be very hard for a lot of clinicians to remind their clients of. They would just be like, oh, just pay it next time, or I'll bill you. Well, you may never see that $30.
Well, this is true. And for me, it's been, there have been situations where I haven't seen thousands of dollars.
Right.
And yeah, so I've been burned more than once.
I know. It starts off small with a copay, but it adds up.
It does add up. And I think those are the types of learning experiences, at least for me personally, that have made me kind of look at what my policy was and how I go about collecting. And so now, and I think you're the same way. It sounds like that. At the end of the session, payment is due, and so they know this up front. I mean, it's part of informed consent, isn't it? That they know these are the policies. This is how it works. And if you can't make the payment, we'll look at the circumstances. But this is a business, and so this is your livelihood. You've got to have that payment. It's not like would a person go into Kroger and have all the food on checkout and say, oops, I can't afford it, and the Kroger person would say, that's okay, go ahead and take the food, just pay us next time. That's not going to happen. Right. Kroger is a business just like you're a business. Yeah. So
this would not happen in any other business. So I'm constantly having to remind myself of that, because it would be so easy, because we're therapists and because we're caring people, to get sucked into their stories and their struggles and not collect a dime.
Right.
And you have to stay on top of it.
No, go ahead.
I've only gotten burned a couple of co-pays, and I was like, well, you know what? That was a cheap $25 lesson. I'll never see that. And that is okay because now I know.
That's right. That's exactly right. Okay, well, let me talk about this a little bit. We've been talking about some of these real practical types of things, but of course, being a private practitioner, there's also an element of you as the person. And I wonder, kind of as looking at your own journey, Amanda, over the past month, what have you learned about yourself, and how have you grown personally? How have you grown professionally over the past month?
I would say, kind of speaking onto the last question with the whole money matters, is I recognize how much of kind of a businesswoman I am, an entrepreneur, and I didn't realize that. I think the old me, or as I've grown, I would have been too nervous to ever been like, hey, this is our policy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You owe at the time of service. And I recognize like how, I can do marketing, I can do finances, I can do billing, and it kind of goes to my personality. I'm that very type A, organized, efficient. I get things done right away, and how beneficial that has been for running a business. Because in a private practice, I mean, being a good clinician, a good therapist is just half of it. That won't make you successful.
That's true.
You have to have that other side, and I've kind of realized I might have that.
That reminds me of way back when I was in graduate school, and you can probably relate to this too, Amanda, where you're just starting off and you're taking classes and you're learning how to be a counselor or a therapist, but you really don't know much about it yet. But you may have just come out of an undergraduate program, and when you're first in a grad program, you don't think of yourself as a professional. I mean, you just kind of think of yourself as a student, And as you start to move through the program, you get into those practicum and internship experiences and start to really experience what it's like. Your perception of yourself starts to shift a little bit, and you start thinking of yourself in a different way. And this is sort of what you're talking about here, I think, where all this time you've been working, in the hospital setting. You were an employee, you were a professional counselor, you were doing your deal. But now it's different. Now you're a business owner. And so there's a shift in identity that comes along with that. It's not really a shift as much as you're just kind of adding on to what you've already started. You've had that foundation as a professional counselor, and now you're kind of adding on to that as being a business owner.
Exactly. And it just all of a sudden the light bulb went off that I'm doing this and I'm doing well at it. Maybe I've been kind of more businesswoman all along, and good thing I'm an okay clinician as well, because you have to have that.
That's right. It sounds like this has been a good decision for you to make this plunge into private practice, and that thinking of yourself as a businesswoman, it sounds like it really corresponds to who you are as a person anyway, your personality. And I think that's probably also why I've struggled in past agencies, is because I could see how things were maybe run, policies were implemented. I'm like, oh, that's not how I would do it. Yes, if I ran the zoo.
Exactly. So maybe that's why it's going well for me now.
That's great. Well, the last thing I wanted to ask you about today, Amanda, is just learning and wisdom. There's a lot to learn, obviously, when you go into private practice, and I think experience is obviously a good teacher. But what is one pearl of wisdom that you could share with the Journey followers? People who are kind of listening and thinking, "Man, that sounds so good. I'd love to go into private practice." Things that might help them in their own journeys into private practice.
Yeah. So I think last month I had kind of a more abstract or metaphor, don't reinvent the wheel. Like this month I was thinking just a very concrete, create a business plan.
All right.
Because that was one thing I just kept skipping. Every time I would read all the steps I needed to do for a business, and it would say, create a business plan. I was like, nah, I have that all in my head. I don't need one. And then finally, one day I was bored and I created a business plan. And I think that is what has helped so much in this last month, because I could see, for example, the goals that I wanted in the next 6 months, in the next year.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me almost not work harder, but see where I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
And heck, I did all of them, and then within the month.
Yeah,
It helped me outline, for example, my finances, and that's when I thought, I am paying a lot for my billing service, and I could do this myself.
Right, exactly.
And so having those things like written down made such a world of difference than just winging it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really, and the whole concept of a business plan is something we could just spend an entire podcast episode on that, I think.
Yeah.
And, but I think just generally speaking, and I agree with this, getting your ideas down on paper. Okay, so what's the plan here? What is it that I want to do? Just not generally speaking, but on a more detailed type of basis. And how am I going to get from point A to point B, and what is it going to take, and really thinking all those things through. It's something that a lot of people don't want to do because their brains don't operate that way. But I think that really, if you're thinking of going into business, I think that that's a very smart thing to do. Because you know how to plan, you know what to expect, especially if you talk to people who have done business plans or other practitioners who've been in private practice, just to, bend their ear and ask for their advice. And I think all that information can go into a business plan. So I really like that. And I think maybe in an upcoming podcast episode, we could devote some more time to that.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You can spend so much time talking about what goes into it.
Oh, sure. Well, Amanda, we're at the end of our podcast episode today. So if somebody wants to contact you to just kind of bend your ear and to talk to you a little bit more about what you're doing, how you're doing it, how can they contact you?
Yeah, I either have my website is amandalcpc.com, and then you can find all my other contact information from there, like Facebook, email, or my Facebook, for example, is Amanda Petrik, LCPC.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast again this month, and we will talk to you next month.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, thanks. Okay, that was a great interview with Amanda, and she's certainly learned a lot over the past month, huh? And one of the most important things that came out of this interview, at least for me, was how she's starting to look at herself differently. She's looking at herself as a businesswoman, and I think that's a shift because when you're working in a clinic as a clinician, as a counselor, you're doing what you've been trained to do in graduate school. But as a private practitioner, you have more responsibilities to make sure that you're doing the marketing, that you're keeping track of finances, all those other things that people may have done for you or personnel may have done on your behalf in an agency. So I think there's a real shift in how you see yourself when you go into private practice. Well, if you'd like to get the show notes for today's episode, please visit my website, chrisquarto.com. And also, I want to encourage you to join the Private Practice Journeys Facebook community so you can follow the journeys of these 4 therapists and others who are taking the plunge into private practice. I think that this is a good way to support one another, to learn and support one another so everybody can be successful. I hope you have a great rest of the week.